All right, it's another day of reckoning for, unfortunately, one of our own. I consider him one of our own because he plays really well. He shreds. He's very animated. He seems to be quite an intelligent fellow because his comedy is on point. It's outlandish, and you can tell he puts a lot of effort into it. And he does have good taste for the most. I wouldn't say most part, but he does have good taste. Uh, there's a issue, underlying issue when I first discovered Bradley Hall, is that he has a weird, strange fetish. This awful American band called Avenged Sevenfold. Now, I understand Avenged Sevenfold has fans, and most of them are around his age or maybe younger. I've had experience with people that like Avenged Sevenfold. That's not to say that they're the most horrible band in the world, but there's a lot of cringe coming from that camp, and it's. I mean, I don't get why it's such hype, but then again, if you analyze it, uh, this band was around at a time when metal was basically on life support. It was like a vegetable, and it was just like communicating in grunts and spasms, and very little of that era, which is the early 2000s, is respectable, especially for people that are more of a certain age that grew up in the 80s and early 90s with quality bands and quality music. And then, it became so dire that awful cancerous polyps like Slipknot, Linkin Park, and Avenged Sevenfold, and MCR, and Bullet for My Valentine, and Asking Alexandria, all those really awful, like, gothic haircut uh, emo kids. Kill Switch Engage was another one. Shadows Fall. It was just full of just really crappy emo tinge and strange stuff. Avenged Sevenfold just, I don't know, they varied from album to album, but I've seen and I heard a lot of their videos, so I can grasp, understand. It's called doing your research before you open your mouth. And I gotta say, there's some stuff that is okay, and then some stuff that is really just straight up cringe, and it's, I don't know, and the way people praised the drummer for some reason, the Rev, it sounds like a boy band, and the Rev was probably like the cutest one and the tallest one, but apparently he supposedly was the main driving force of their talent and songwriting. I mean, I couldn't tell because it's all crap. I mean, there's worse things out there, of course, but this fetish that Bradley Hall has is very odd. Now that's one thing. Now another thing from another band from almost that era is Trivium. Now you have to be of a certain age to really gravitate towards it, because when they were like being hyped up by whatever Metal Hammer, and I guess they had their videos out there, and people of a certain age, your 11-year-olds or 13-year-olds will just gravitate to whatever is shoved into their eyes by corporate media because it's a business, right? Business. And this business is just grasping at straws and pumping lots of money into these really watered down, and you could almost say just very meek and very strangely untalented, mediocre, regurgitation metal with a twist of emo, stylings. It's not full on emo. It's just that there's like elements of like the guitar licks and everything, and it's just like of the day trends for the kids. Now, when you grow up and you do your proper research, like every respectable metalhead and just music appreciator that doesn't just listen to whatever the radio tells them to, when you do your research, should come out of that, and you should be like, wow, I was pretty stupid and dumb because I was young and I didn't have a mentor, or I didn't really study the past or where metal came from. And granted, like Bradley Hall, he does his Black Sabbath research and everything. He admires the band, whatever. But most of his stuff that he's really passionate about is the stuff that was published when he was, I guess, around that malleable teenage puberty age, and he still adheres to that. In case in point, he goes off to say that Iron Maiden's Killer is really not all that great. That there's only two good songs and the rest is just neither here nor there. And I'm like, Is this guy rage baiting people? Because no one in the history of ever has ever said anything quite like that about one of the greatest, most classic Paul Di'Anno era albums there ever was. Killers is an absolute majestic album. I wouldn't say it's their number one. It was my first introduction, but I kept on listening and I did do my research and try to understand how things are composed and why and what's going on with the double guitars and the layering and the lyrics and the thought process of the songwriting. And it wasn't until somewhere in time that I finally decided this is the best album they've ever done. And I was so right, because after that, you had your watered down Seventh Son. It's not a bad album, but it is watered down compared to Somewhere in Time. And then after that, even more watered down. A couple of good tracks on Fear the Dark and Don't Pray for the Dying. Like, just generally kind of forgettable albums with a few good tracks. And Bruce has decided that he's had enough of the downturn. You know, they're just going downhill, like the Titanic, slowly but surely. And then this guy Blaze came into the picture. I think I heard it one time on a tape, and then said, forget it. Maiden is dead, and they sure were, but not for people that were coming of age and were discovering Maiden. And to this day, I still see people saying that the Blaze albums are heavily underrated and they're classics. And I'm like, bro, no, you just haven't evolved your taste, and you don't understand what you're talking. You're talking pure nostalgia. And this is what Bradley Hall, I think, is anchored in, pure nostalgia. And he tries to justify it, talking like about the nuances of whatever.
Metal bands, part 2. So Maiden is one of my favourite bands of all time, but I personally have never gotten the hype around Killers. Besides Wrathchild and the title track, there just isn't really much going on here, to be honest. Oh, this is a really tricky one, but I'm going to go with a joint pick of Brave New World and Dance of Death. For me, these albums are perfect and easily just as good as the 80s stuff. I would probably go with Hypnotize. There's just way too much Darren singing on this album. It just gets kind of annoying after a while, to be honest. Underrated is also kind of hard to pick, but I'm probably going to go with Steal This Album. It often gets overlooked. Probably Deliverance. Like, it's still sick, but compared to all the other like mid-era classic albums, it's kind of weak and like cobbled together. Underrated, probably Still Life. I don't hear this album get anywhere near as much love as it should do. Tricky one, but I'm going to go with Volume 4. Feel like this album kind of sucks compared to the other classic ones.
Doesn't compute. It all sums up to nostalgia and then blind allegiance, just like a MAGA. They don't care about facts, figures, and the lies. They make their choice, and that's what they're going to stick to, and that's it. You can't change their mind. So, in this regard, it's really sad. But Bradley, you really should stick to comedy. Like, your musings about Avenged Sevenfold are really tiresome, and they really make you look bad, even though you might not think so. And other idiots like you, of your age or younger, will back you up. So you're going to be fine. You're going to have that streamy income coming because, you know, people are idiots. In any case, please do more comedy and less talk about music, because you suck. Trivium sucks. Avenged Sevenfold fucking sucks. And any Iron Maiden album after 1992, 93 is absolute regurgitated, formulaic, bland, flat, nauseatingly boring, epically boring stuff. So cram it, Bradley. Take a hike.